behalf of the committee, I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's second congressional debate. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight's debate, Matt Burdett, Editor-in-Chief of the National Republic.
Negron of Nashua. The number 2 spot, Mr. Bob Burns. The number 3 spot, Ryan Belanger. The number 4 spot, Dr. Stewart Levenson. And the last spot, Lynne, Blankenbeker.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody for coming out, specifically to Matt. Thank you, sir, for moderating. To the NRCC, once again, a phenomenal event for us, and to the National Community College for hosting us. I am Steve Negron, and I am going to unseat Ann Custer. For over 40 years, I've been answering the call of duty in both the public and private sector. I'm a retired Air Force officer and I'm a small business owner. I will protect and defend the unborn. I will protect and defend the Second Amendment, not just the Second Amendment, but every one of the 10 of the Bill of Rights. I will fight to make the tax cuts that were done in December permanent. I will fight and support President Trump to go ahead and do immigration reform and help them build a wall. And I am a veteran. I will fight for veteran causes. I'm retired Air Force, my wife's retired Air Force, my father's retired Air Force. Our family has over 109 years of military service and still counting, as our son is on active duty with the Air Force Special Operations Command.
Who's Ann Custer? Thank you, Mr. Negron. Moving on,
former Hillsborough County Treasurer, and I was born right here in Gate City. I'm a small business owner. I work in the pharmaceutical manufacturing area as well as other areas, but the main portion of my business is pharmaceutical manufacturing. My mother came here as a legal immigrant, and that's what got me into politics. I worked for various candidates over the years, including Mike Huckabee, Newt Gingrich, and lastly, Donald Trump. A big reason that I'm running for office is to go to Washington, D.C. to support our president and to help him drain the swamp. As we know that many people there in D.C., Republicans and Democrats, are not supporters of our president and would like to see him fail. I would like to go to Washington, D.C. to push the MAGA agenda, to build the wall, to make the tax cut permanent, to protect our Second Amendment, and to protect life.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Just as a reminder to candidates, there is a timer down front for your reference. Mr. Belanger, come to you.
Yes. How you doing? My name is Belanger, and I'm running for the 2nd Congressional District seat for Congress. My parents are small business owners, and my whole family has been small business owners for many years. We serve the people of our community, and I want to go to Washington to bring the people's voice back to Washington. We need to bring our voice to Washington so that we can end wasteful spending. We can stop purchasing things we don't need to purchase. We can stop spending money in departments that don't need to be spent. We need to support a lot of the agenda of the administration. The administration is coming up with some good ideas, and we need to push those ideas for we the people. And it's all about working for the people, because that's what our job is. I'm coming down to the end of my time, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Belanger. Dr. Levenson.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm Stewart Levenson. I'm running to restore accountability to government. I'm the only one running who has a proven record of taking on the special interests and getting real results for the people of New Hampshire. When I blew the whistle on corruption at the VA, I risked it all, but that's what leadership means. Now I'm asking for your support to blow the whistle on Washington, to end illegal immigration, to defend our constitutional rights, and to deliver for our veterans. We don't need any more career politicians. We need conservative outsiders who will work with the president to drain the swamp. I'm a doctor, I'm not a politician. Doctors have always been advocates for their patients. As your congressman, I'll be an advocate for you in the 2nd Congressional District. This is another election cycle. You hear a lot of promises, but look at my background and you'll see that I've always delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Levenson. Ms. Blankenbeker.
Thank you, and thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. It's been so amazing to campaign here in CD2. People are excited, they're ready for change, people are ready for civility and integrity in DC. Unfortunately, some in this field have not chosen civility and chosen to question my record of service. So let's set the record straight right now. I've been a military nurse for 32 years, and during peacetime and in wartime, I was a combat nurse. My job was not to charge the beachhead or take the hill, but my task was to try and save the lives of those who are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for all of us. I've nursed warriors back to health so they can see their families again, and tragically, I have held the hands of wounded warriors who have died in my arms and taken their last breath. That is what happens in a combat zone, and I've been there. It is an honor to serve my country, and it's unfortunate that some have chosen to dishonor themselves and our veterans by choosing politics over patriotism. The good news is there is one person on this stage who can accomplish the mission of defeating Ann Custer and bring civility to Congress, and you're looking at it right here. I'm Lynne Blankenbeker, I'm mission ready, combat proven, and I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, candidates. Now we will begin to move into our questions for this evening. First, being on taxes, the deficit, and the economy. The United States has been experiencing economic growth during the Trump administration. What problems do you anticipate as the potential
a great economy and low unemployment. It seems great from the outset of 1,000 miles out. Obviously, there are certain issues that we have with such low employment, finding sometimes people to work. So one of the things that Congress can address is getting people here more under the many different types of visas that allow temporary workers, or even bringing in, changing some of our immigration policies to bringing in the types of high-tech workers that we might need in certain areas that we can fill those. Another issue that we have is we see a lot of manufacturing leaving America, and it's great and all that we all have jobs and we move a lot of money around. I don't remember the CEO's name because he's Japanese, but I remember him being in awe of America, that we're losing all our manufacturing and we're becoming an economy based on moving just money around. And I think it's important that we have policies here where we don't hinder manufacturing in America, so that we can kind of get the manufacturing back from overseas and keep the manufacturing that's here for national security reasons.
Thank you. Mr. Belanger, the same question, and if you need the question repeated, please ask and I'll do so.
Yeah, no, I'm all set. It's main thing is to keep workers here in New Hampshire. We need to make incentive programs for our college students so that we can keep them to stay in New Hampshire when they graduate. With that, we'll be able to keep employment. And again, we also need to go, and these companies that are coming back into the United States to manufacture things, we need to get our congressmen to find those companies and bring them to New Hampshire. We need to make incentives for them to build things and make things in New Hampshire. Over this campaign, I hear a lot of complaining about 2-cent hike in aluminum cans for their beer. Well, we need to get someone to start manufacturing aluminum cans here in New Hampshire instead of worrying about getting them out of Canada. We have to stop worrying about feeding other countries' economies, and we got to start building things here and creating jobs. And again, a lot of it has to do with getting into our colleges and trying to teach students here in New Hampshire.
Thank you. Dr. Levenson?
Ann Custer voted against tax cuts that put money in the pockets of 80% of the citizens of New Hampshire. It's almost like she represents other states and she doesn't want the New Hampshire economy to succeed. That's why we have to get rid of her, one among many reasons. We've had the longest bull market in history. We've had economic growth, which based on absolute numbers has been greater than any other time in recent memory. And this is what Congress has to do. Make the tax cuts permanent, and also continue the trend of deregulation. Deregulation was giving a stranglehold. Deregulation will prevent further stranglehold on our economy. I visit many small businesses. One financial services business, they have 10 brokers, they need one person who's a full-time compliance officer. So that has to change, and Congress must take the lead in doing this. If we don't, then the president's agenda will stall. So right now, it looks like the horizon is good, but there are many problems that can get up, such as interest rates and other factors that are looking to stifle growth.
Ms. Blankenbeker?
Please repeat the question.
The United States has been experiencing economic growth during the Trump administration. What problems do you anticipate as the potential challenges to the economy, and what policies should Congress adopt to address them?
Thank you. So yes, I agree. When I was out on the campaign trail, I stopped at the gentleman's home and he came out the door and I said, what do you think Trump's best policy has been? And I said, the tax reform. And he literally came out of his door and hugged me, and he, with tears in his eyes, said, we make $400 more a month, and we are now able to buy a new car for the first time. So you're right. You're absolutely right. The economy is better, and we need to continue that and support our president so that we can continue those great policies that he's put in place that are benefiting the Granite State. Because ultimately, I care most about the Granite State. When I was over at the Pentagon, I got to watch the government shutdowns and the continuing resolutions that chipped away our national security. Failing to pass the budget deficit and takes away from our national security. So we need to look at those two things in isolation. We need to look at reducing the deficit. The deficit will never get reduced without a balanced budget, so we need to support Congress's job anyway. Deregulation. We've got to get control of regulations, deregulate so that people can keep businesses going and more money in their pockets. And my time's up.
Mr. Negron?
Thank you for the question.
Is this on?
Everybody's talking about taxes, but that's half the equation.
And that's what you have to do. You can't have tax reduction without deficit reduction. And that's what we have to do in Congress. You know, I believe in this process called zero-based budgeting. And that is where all of those 12 people that put in their authorization bills and they have 12 appropriation bills, they have to start from zero and justify what their budget is. Everybody believes that they get to have the same budget from last year as a starting point. That has to end. The president is doing some great things, and those of you following the news today, he started a new agreement with Mexico. He's going to go ahead and throw out NAFTA and start a new agreement with Mexico, and he's going to bring Canada in. So I believe the president is doing those things that are important to us. He's looking at the trade deals, and I think those are the things that are going to bring this economy back and keep us strong.
Thank you. The second question of this evening will deal with military and defense. What do you see as national security threats, and what policies would you propose in Congress to address them? And this question we will start with Mr. Belanger.
Well, our biggest, one of the big things about our defense is that we have to keep our enemies close to us. We have to keep talking to them. We can't not talk to them. We can't not be involved in what they're involved in. It's been wonderful that our president has talked to Korea and is starting doing some good things with Korea. And now we have to move to China. I know we have trade deals with China. We have all kinds of money involved with China, but we still have to keep involved with what's going on. We just have to come up with plans to make sure that our country stays strong. If we stay strong here in the United States, and we have to involve we the people have to be involved in it. We need to keep our country strong, defend. We don't have to buy steel, we don't have to buy things from other countries. Thank you.
Dr. Levenson.
Yes. Well, some of the threats to national defense include, paradoxically, our growing economy. It's harder to maintain readiness when troops are mustering out and not staying until retirement. So we have to improve the benefits within the military. That's one of the things the president's been working on, extending GI Bill benefits, and that will help allow soldiers to receive education while they're in the military, as well as use the benefits once they finally do leave, and that makes it more attractive as well. Another issue on the same lines is our VA system. If our VA system doesn't do its job, then people will think twice about even entering the military during peacetime. People enter the military for a variety of reasons. Patriotism is certainly one, but they look at their career prospects as well and how well they're taken care of. If we don't take top-notch care of our veterans, it creates morale issues for those in, as well as for those who have already left, setting a poor example.
Ms. Blankenbeker.
Thank you. So, when I was at the Pentagon, the government shutdowns and continuing resolutions really chipped away at our national security, and I alluded to it just a little while ago, but the Pentagon has 23,000 people, 60% of which are civilians. So whenever they shut the government down, or whenever there's a continuing resolution or a furlough, those folks can't come to work. There goes all your institutional knowledge. You think about what happens at the Pentagon. That's just one example of ways that our national security is being chipped away at. Certainly as reservists, when there's a government shutdown or a continuing resolution, we can't train, and readiness takes a hit. Those of us who do, I'm still in the reserves, I've missed valuable training opportunities this year alone because of government shutdown. So we've definitely got to get control of the budget and get Congress doing the job that they're supposed to do. Secondarily, the pivot is over to the Pacific now. We've got old ships. Every one of you have picked up the newspaper, I'm sure, and seen that we've got commanders of ships that are being relieved because of accidents. That's because we're overtaxing them. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough training, and our equipment is getting old. We see airplanes crashing, and I'm done.
Mr. Negron.
Absolutely. I think before you can answer this question, you have to know and understand what the national security strategy is and what the 4 pillars of the national security strategy are. I don't think anybody up here at this table understands that the way I do, right? So it's protect the homeland. That's the very first one that we have to do. So how do we do that? We make sure that we have the right military, and it's not by spending too much money, it's by spending the right money. That's one of the first pillars. The other one is promote American prosperity. We're doing that right now when we see with the GDP of 4.1%. That's what the president does, and he understands what those pillars are. Preserve peace through strength. That's the military. Like I said, my family has 109 years of military service, and that's what you have to do. Remember, this is an all-volunteer force. So you better make sure you take care of the men and women today, both the airmen, Marines, Army, and Coastie, because they're not going to be there tomorrow to go ahead and volunteer. And the last one is to advance American influence. How do we do that? We do that by helping other countries. So you have to fundamentally understand what the national security strategy is. I do. I've helped write policy before, and that's how you keep America's strength through the way we do. Thank you.
Mr. Burns,
Can you repeat the question, please?
what do you see as national security threats and what policies would you propose in Congress to address them?
Okay, so national security threats, I mean, obviously there's a number of threats, whether it be from Russia, military invasion. We have national security threats of ISIS coming over our borders, both from the south and the north, and I think a lot of people are focusing on one. I'll talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Because I work in manufacturing and stuff, one of the most important things that I think we can always protect is in a country, making your own food, pharmaceuticals, and having manufacturing here is very important. Like we saw during the Second World War, it was Detroit that won the Second World War. And I think that the policy is to keep that sort of here. So I work for a company that makes a vaccine particularly only used in the military. And this was something that wasn't made for a number of years because of overbearing government regulations. And those are the types of things that we need to look at. And it's important because we don't even make light bulbs anymore in the United States. That if we see another SARS outbreak or something like that in China, we can see a lot of adverse threats both to the United States and to the world that we need to focus on.
Thank you. Our third question this evening will deal with immigration policy. What changes do you propose for U.S. immigration policy? Dr. Levenson.
Yes. This is an important topic, immigration policy. We have to build the wall. We will never correct this national fiasco of an immigration policy while our borders remain porous. It's actually more than a fiasco, it's a tragedy. Look at the story of Molly Tibbetts. She died because we allowed violent criminals into our country. And as a country, we have yet to agree on removing those violent criminals who become the scourge of our inner cities. We can determine on the rest what status they want. A lot want to just come here, work, and go back, which is a great diplomatic mission in itself. I've talked to farmers across the state who they can't fill jobs with Americans. They're forced by immigration law to advertise in newspapers. Some of them are spending $500, $1,000 to get workers knowing not a single person will apply. Because of the turmoil of immigration policy, they can't even get the appropriate number of visas for the same group that's been coming for the last 20 years to do the work. This has to change.
Ms. Blankenbeker.
Well, there's no doubt that we need to secure our borders. We've got a lot of problems in this nation because our borders are so porous. We can't talk about the opioid crisis without talking about immigration. We certainly have a lot of other issues, crime that is coming over, and it's just as Dr. Levenson pointed out with Molly Tibbetts' case most recently. But, so, of course, we've got to support the president and build a wall. We definitely need a physical wall, we need an electronic wall, we need boots on the ground, we need ICE, there to protect us as well as the National Guard, which is what they're trained to do. And so I definitely support securing our borders through a wall. We need to stop with the sanctuary cities already. Those sanctuary cities are costing us billions of dollars. We could have built the wall already with the sanctuary city money that that they're talking about spending. So no sanctuary cities. And we need to enforce our laws. We have laws. There are a million ways, well, not really a million. There are a lot of ways to come into this country legally. And folks are doing it all the time. We pointed out already that you can come in on a work visa. You definitely can come in if for other types of visas. But we need to make sure that the policies that we have in place and the laws we have in place are enforced.
Mr. Negron.
Thank you very much. Well, as a grandson of a Mexican immigrant, it's very close to my heart what these immigration policies are. My grandfather came over here the right way. We had laws. We need to make sure that we enforce those laws, and we need to get back to doing that. But we talk about immigration. Congresswoman Custer sat on the floor and gave a vote of president when we wanted a vote of confidence for our ICE agents. When you look at the Pew Research about in 2015, it said that there were 11 million illegal immigrants in this country. There were over 1,500 people arrested for human trafficking. It is a national issue, it's a crisis. What we need to do is make sure that we provide people the right resources. We need to make sure that those people in the U.S. Border Patrol and ICE agents are provided the right tools and material. We need to make sure that we look at what those laws are on the books. We need to enforce those on the books. And if some need to get changed, we can look at those as a time-available basis. But the point is, those people out there that are protecting our borders, we need to make sure that the government is doing and what they have to do to give them the right resources.
Mr. Burns.
So I think that hello? So it just not work? Hello? Hello? Now it's working. Yeah, I'll let you just So with everything that's been set up here, from securing our border to deporting illegal aliens, especially those who have been committing crimes that are already on our radar, so that we avoid terrible tragedies like Molly Tibbetts. Absolutely, all of that, and I think that that's something that we all agree on. One thing that's not being talked about a lot is the amount of people who are coming here on vacation to have what are called anchor babies. And that's something that we do need to crack down on, is pregnant women coming from China, Russia, and really any country who are here specifically on one of these birth vacations here in the United States to have children that will then allow them to enter in and out of the country more easily. And I think that that's something that a lot of people are kind of scared to talk about on this campaign or campaigns across the country, and I think that's something that we really need to focus on.
Mr. Belanger.
It's a lot to sit and talk about the immigration process and this and that. We got to stop fighting across the aisle. We got to just get down to redoing the immigration process. If you're going to come to our country, you need to come to our country the proper way. We have a lot of folks that entered our country in the past, and they came in, they did the immigration process, and they got their citizenship. If you're going to live here for 2 and 3 decades, and then when it comes time that we're going to deport you, you can't say, "Whoa, I didn't have time." That's not right. We need to hold everybody accountable. Law is the law. These sanctuary cities, if a cop is harboring someone who committed a crime, and they're going to let them walk out the courtroom door, that judge, the police officer, and they need to be held accountable, because laws are laws. We need to stop it, because if you or I do a crime, we're going to go right to jail. We're not going to collect the $200. We need to fix these sanctuary cities also. Thank you.
Thank you. Our fourth question of the evening will deal with health care. What would you propose as a member of Congress to improve cost, efficiency, and access to health services in New Hampshire? And we will start with Ms. Blankenbeker.
Thank you. So, first of all, we opened up the line of interstate commerce so that folks can buy their insurance across state lines, so we can lower the cost of insurance, and folks, we can get them in the competitive market. Second of all, cookie cutter insurance or cookie cutter healthcare doesn't work. I would not be an advocate of government-run healthcare. We need to decrease the regulations on healthcare so that folks don't have problems with access. We need to incentivize providers to go into the field of medicine. These enormous education bills that they have on top of their very first thing they have to pay when they get out of medical school to start a practice is $190,000 medical malpractice insurance bill. So we got to have tort reform too. So there's lots of ways that we can curb the cost of healthcare in this nation. And certainly in 1 minute I can't fulfill it all for you. I will tell you though that I have 32 years of healthcare experience. I've done healthcare policy, I've done healthcare law, I've done healthcare delivery, I've done healthcare regulation. I know a lot about healthcare, so much so that CBS came up here today and interviewed me on healthcare and how we were going to fix it in this nation. So while I don't have a laid out plan for you right now in the last 3 seconds that I have to talk to you, I know I can help with the healthcare crisis in this nation.
Mr. Negron.
Thank you for the question. The first thing you have to do is get the government out of the healthcare business. Number 2 is you need to make sure that you bring in what I like to call as a health savings account. I think that's something that me as a small business owner, I started that in 2007. I think it's a vehicle that has not gained traction, but when you look at it, I think it's something that will be able to lower cost. The third thing you have to do is allow the individual in the marketplace to decide when they want to get care. So when you get an explanation of benefits, you see this big lump number, but you have no idea what's rolled into that. An MRI at some hospital, XYZ, could cost you $3,500 on your EOB, but you don't know what that costs. And as a business guy, you know that those rates are called rack rates. That means everything is rolled into that rate. The floor cleaner, the lights, the toilet paper, the garage attendant, everything is rolled into that. What you need to be able to do as a responsible consumer is we need to give you the information so that you yourself can go and get that same procedure at an independent entity, probably the same equipment and the same technicians, and and do it on a cost basis. And I think we need to empower the people to make their own healthcare decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Burns?
So, and again, I think that there's a lot of stuff that we're going to agree on when it comes to healthcare. Absolutely, the government needs to get out of healthcare, and that's great to say and stuff. But the truth of the matter, when I was county treasurer, I saw where all the money went to healthcare. It was the government workers, it was the sheriff's department. When we talk about the prison, all the prisoners are essentially on government healthcare. They are on government healthcare. It was the nursing homes. It's Medicaid, it's Medicare. So when we're looking, and it's the VA, when we're looking at government health care, the first thing that we need to do, and when I see that people on Medicaid will go to a doctor and they don't have to pay a copay, so they don't worry about taking an ambulance or going to the emergency room and having to pay more. People need to be rewarded, and people need to pay larger copays when they're using stuff like the emergency room as a primary care doctor. And that'll help free up the emergency room for those of us who have our own private health insurance. And we need to open up the market so that people can get catastrophic health insurance from over states and stuff, and as well like that again.
Thank you. Mr. Belanger?
The number one thing we need to do is to get the lobbyists. The lobbyists in Washington make a lot of money, and they're in the pockets of every single congressman and senator you can think of. And what's going to happen is if they continue to do their plan, the lobbyists, they're going to control on how everything happens. Until we get rid of them, we're going to keep spinning our wheels. It's like being in a mud pond. I believe everyone should have health care. I haven't got the exact answer how to do it, but I know that everybody has to get together and they have to work for the people and not for themselves. That's the biggest thing we have to stop, is these congressmen and senators working for themselves and not for people that they're supposed to represent. And again, like Bob said, we all agree on basically the same issues for healthcare. We believe everybody should have healthcare. We believe that everybody should be represented. But I believe lobbyists are our main problem.
Dr. Levenson?
Well, thank you. That's a question that I've been asked quite a bit. I have over 30 years experience in healthcare as a physician executive. At the high point of my career, I had over 800 healthcare employees and was overseeing 8 medical centers in 6 states. The main thing is we have to stop paying for healthcare on a cost-plus basis. Every extra test that's ordered, every extra consultation that's obtained, it delays the delivery of healthcare, but moreover, it adds cost, and there's no disincentive. As a matter of fact, your providers are incentivized to upcode and charge more by adding more superfluous tests. This really has to stop, because no matter how you pay for healthcare, you won't control it until how you charge for healthcare. Families cannot afford health insurance. All Obamacare did was exchange one group of uninsured for another. Sure, we need a safety net, but moreover, we need a health plan that middle-class people can afford and not have to worry about whether they can buy a house and get a mortgage because they want to buy health insurance.
Thank you. Our final question of the evening will deal with energy. New Hampshire has been saddled with particularly high energy costs. What would you do to help New Hampshire families and its businesses? Mr. Negron?
Thank you. Well, the first thing we have to do is we need to stop regulating energy in any state. That's not the government's role. The free market is what determines what the price point should be. Look, we know that as a small business owner, particularly the cost of energy drives people's behavior, and it may mean that people move out of the state of New Hampshire to find a place that has lower energy costs. I don't know what the answer is, but everything for me is on the table, whether it's wind, whether it's hydropower, whether it's nuclear, whether it's oil, gas. It really doesn't matter. What has to matter is that the government needs to get out of regulating energy, let the free market determine what that price point is, and let the states decide what's good for them. Anytime you have the big government reach its big paw into a state's pocket, it creates chaos and it creates problems, and we've seen that in this state, and I've seen it in the State House. So what we have to do is make sure that we back out of it, let the states do what they think is the right thing to do, and get the government out of regulation.
Mr. Burns?
Nuclear energy. That's what we need to be investing into. We need to be investing into nuclear energy, building new nuclear power plants, lifting off on the regulations, a lot of which have been put there by the lobbyists from the oil and fossil fuel industries. We need to get under their thumbs and then bring in nuclear energy. I mean, we not talking about bringing any more nuclear energy to the United States, which is ridiculous. And I've spent a lot of time in Europe where you have countries like France that run off of 75% nuclear power, and even here in the state of New Hampshire, it's 50%. But a lot of the other energy that we're using, like biomass and stuff, is very expensive to the ratepayers here. So absolutely, more nuclear energy, less regulation, and we need to be working with people to build more new nuclear power plants.
Mr. Belanger.
I believe that we need to get back to working on some hydropower. We just can't be beholden to another country for any energy on this East Coast. We need to make sure that we get in, and if it's nuclear power, wind power, solar power, we have to try and get people excited again to try and do these things. If we pull back some regulations, we can open up some of our hydro plants again here in New Hampshire and just retool them, get them to produce power again. They were all successful in the past years. We have all the proper, everything's properly set there. We just need to rework them, get some new, spend a little money on them. Hydropower would be a big thing for New Hampshire, and it would generate. And Seabrook's coming close to being done here, coming up in a few years. So we do need to think of a new plan. And I think hydro's a good start, and obviously I agree on the nuclear power also.
Dr. Levenson.
Well, interestingly enough, with deregulation in the power industry in New Hampshire, it's led to increased costs. Part of that has to do with the greatest part of your electric bill is the transmission costs. So by producing power within the state, we can hedge against that as well as volatility in the national market. One of the things we can do is use renewables, because for the first time in history, renewables can now compete with fossil fuels for the production of energy in a market system. My goal would be to remove all subsidies, so that way the marketplace can decide. We shouldn't be picking winners and losers. We often ignore the oil and coal industries because they've been picked so early that they get the largest subsidies. We also have to understand that while nuclear power in theory looks desirable, the problem is because of the redundant systems required and the safety issues as well as the lifespan of the reactor core, one of the problems is that it actually is near one of the most expensive. So all options are on the table, but we have to act what's in the best interest for New Hampshire.
Ms. Blankenbeker.
Thank you. Yes, diversity of energy is certainly what we should be looking at, and just like everybody said, all options are on the table. The important thing for me is when I get to Congress is I really need to look at what the Granite Staters want. And so we have looked at the Northern Packs. The Granite Staters didn't want it. The Brookline pipeline, Granite Staters didn't want that. And so while we do need to look at all kinds of sources of energy, biomass is a huge source of energy here in the state of New Hampshire, and we need to look at all types of energy. But the reality is what's going to work for California is not going to work for the state of New Hampshire. Maybe solar energy is better for them, and hydroelectricity wouldn't be an option for them. Probably not. Where it might be an option somewhere else. So my focus is really on the Granite State. My focus is on, does it meet the Granite State's needs? Is it going to change the character of the Granite State in a way the Granite Staters don't want that? We're not going to force energy choices on to the Granite State. It's the people's voice here, and they should get to decide. And I certainly agree with, the Department of Energy.
Thank you. I'd also like to take a moment now that our questions have been concluded to thank the candidates for being very respectful of the time limit. That being said, we are now going to allow for 3 minutes for closing statements. And we will start closing statements with Mr. Burns.
Thank you for coming out. So I think one of the most important things to consider right now when we're talking about this, and from a guy who has spent a lot of time in politics and it's about beating Ann Custer, is who can beat Ann Custer. Unfortunately, what we've seen is the RNC is not focusing any time on the 2nd District. They don't believe it's winnable. And we need to make this winnable, and one of the important factors that I bring to the table is being an early Trump supporter and being an early supporter of Trump and knowing Donald Trump and his family members. We need to be able to excite that base. We saw tens of thousands of brand new voters for the first time come out and vote for Donald Trump, and then they continue to vote in both the primary and the general election. And we need to be able to reach out to those voters and excite them. And honestly, not all those voters are Republicans. Some of them are independent, some of them are undeclared. Some of them really don't consider themselves anything, but they like what's going on and they like what's happening with the president. The president has been very successful, and he has a brash and harsh way of talking and on Twitter and stuff like that, and he's not a polished politician. And they want somebody that they can believe in that's going to go down there and help the president drain the swamp. They don't want another slick-talking politician who's going to tell them what they want to hear at that time. They don't want somebody with a record. Somebody with a record of being, pro-Second Amendment all his life. Somebody with a record of being pro-life all his life. Somebody with a record of being from New Hampshire all his life, who's lived across the entire state, who's went to school at Keene State College, born in Nashua, New Hampshire, spent his summers on Lake Sunapee. Somebody that can relate to them on all these various factors, who is also an early supporter of Donald Trump, that they don't have to worry about, that once they get into Washington, they're going to start to change their mind and change their votes and be pressured by the swamp to do what the swamp wants them to do. So that's why I'd like your vote on September 11th, so I can go on to beat Ann Custer and to get those deplorables out here, to vote Ann Custer out.
Thank you. Mr. Belanger?
I don't know if there's ever a right answer or a wrong answer. I don't know if there's ever, everybody has all the experience to do the job, because I don't think nobody has all the experience to do the job. It's who's going to represent the people. We have to go back to our original core values, where there was no Democrats, no Republicans, no independents, where there was just we the people back in Philadelphia when they all came together and built our great nation. We have to build our nation strong again. We have to make our steel in America. We have to our manufacture, our farming. We have to get behind the people. So you need someone who's going to go to Washington to represent the people. Again, like I said, I don't always have the right answers, but I know that I have a business background. I'm not a politician, and I'm going to go and fight for the people of the Granite State, because that's what I believe in. I am one of the people, because I don't have expensive house, expensive car. I go and live day by day just like everybody else that's in the Granite State. I understand what it takes to wake up in the morning and figure, oh, damn, I gotta make a house payment, I gotta make a car payment, I gotta put a kid through school. I understand all that. I have to understand that what's gonna happen when my kid comes out of school. What's gonna happen for my granddaughter in the future? What is our country gonna be like? Are we gonna continue to be fighting a war that we don't deserve to be in? We have to make all these decisions, and some of these decisions will be made on the fly. Some of these decisions are going to be made while we're in Washington, but it all counts on coming back to the state. Constituent services, coming back and knowing your name. 32% of the people in the District 2 don't even know who Ann Custer is, and she's been there for 3 terms. That's ridiculous. You got to come back to the Granite State, and you got to go to all these towns, and you got to go visit. That's what we need. We need someone who's going to care for the people and actually visit the people after they get elected, not worry about visiting them in 2 years when their time's up again. We need someone who's going to want to go around and going to want to go to carnivals and fairs and flea markets and just walk around and walk into a diner not with 4 of your friends and take pictures of those same 4 people in 30 diners. You need to go into a diner by yourself and start handing out placards and talk to people and ask them, geez, what can I do for you when I get into Congress? That's what it's all about. It's about the people. And as soon as everybody remembers that and starts to figure that out, it's the people that are going to put us there. It's the people we have to represent every single day. What's in it for the best? What's in it for the best for the people of the Granite State? That's what we have to ask ourselves every day. Thank you.
Dr. Levenson.
Thank you, Nashua Republican City Committee. Thank you, Andrew, for organizing this, Di. And thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's still the summer, the days may be getting a little shorter, but there are plenty of places you can be. So I, for one, really appreciate you coming out and seeing how democracy is going to work this time. When I blew the whistle on dangerous conditions at the VA, I did risk everything. That's my definition of leadership. lack of leadership. I decided to run when I saw her constantly shortchange New Hampshire. Career politicians only look out for themselves. I've proven that I'm a reformer, a conservative outsider who can take her on. I've sat across the table from her in settings where she made no attempt to hide her contempt for her constituents. At the VA, I never hesitated to take on the second largest governmental bureaucracy despite those personal risks. I spoke up not only for our most deserving population, but for our most vulnerable, our veterans. I showed they won't be forgotten, and we won't be forgotten either. Now I'm asking for your support on September 11th to speak up for you. With your support, we'll show Ann Custer we can stop illegal immigration, we can defend the Constitution, and we can do a whole lot more. It's not just another midterm election. Some Democrats are scheming to impeach our president. Why? Because he isn't a career politician. He is looking out for us and not them. Together, we're going to deny the Democrats this plot. They are counting on our apathy, and they're counting wrong. They are not going to stall a Republican agenda that has brought about record prosperity for the American people. They are not going to be allowed to deepen the swamp. I'm asking you to vote on September 11th for me, a doctor who will go to Washington and work for the people of New Hampshire. Please go to levensonforcongress.com and sign up and see how you can help out. Thank you so much.
Ms. Blankenbeker.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm so excited to always come to events like this. It's clear the red wave is coming. Folks look, don't look like a real excited group tonight, but generally people are really super excited that we're going to actually do this. We're going to have the red wave come through. That happened for me in 2009 when I ran for that special election in Concord. Nobody thought a conservative Republican like me could win in a district like that. I beat a 4-term mayor and embedded state representative for like 11 terms. And he had great name ID, and he was very popular, he was a super nice man, but I beat him, and I beat him by 17 votes, and I beat him by a true, strong grassroots campaign. And if we can do it in 2009, we're going to do it again, and so I'm so glad to see that there's so many people that are hopeful that the red wave is coming. For the last 6 years, I have gotten information periodically, not very often, but from our current representative, Ann Custer. And her literature always says, I voted with Obama 99% of the time, or I voted with the Democrats 99% of the time. But never once did I ever get a piece of literature from her that said I voted for the Granite State once. And that's really bothersome. She's our representative. She should be representing us. And when I was at the Pentagon and I got that front row seat to the dysfunction going on in Congress, and infighting and the gridlock that was a result of it, the congressional temper tantrums, where our congresswoman literally sat on the floor. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, we can do better than this. There's a million people that wear a military uniform. It doesn't matter if we're Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard. It doesn't matter our political leanings or our religious background, if we're male or female. We all roll up our sleeves and we do one thing, and that's protect and defend this nation and our Constitution. And if 1 million people in the military can do that, 435 people in your Congress should be able to do that for you. And that is exactly what I intend to do for all of you, is to go bring that military ethos, roll up my sleeves, and get to work with everybody else. We take an oath when we join the military. It is to protect and defend our Constitution, and surprisingly, Congress takes a very similar oath. So for me, this is the same oath, just a different mission. And it's my intention to go to Congress and bring that ethos with me. If there's no doubt, you can look at 32 years in the military, I've protected and defended the Constitution. I'm very strong on every constitutional amendment, and certainly the Second Amendment. I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by the Susan B. Anthony list. It's clear I'm a pro-life legislator. I think as conservative Republicans, we are very similar in a lot of ways. But the question is, who is going to be Ann Custer on September 11th? And I will tell you that I have the background, I have the ethos, I have the character and the integrity to do that. I've already formed coalitions with my MAD PAC and my War Veterans Funds members, where we're going to come together with honor, and we're going to work together for all of you. So I know where the code machines are, I know my way to the bathroom, I'm ready to get going. Congress is fractured, and we need to send this nurse there to heal it.
Mr. Negron.
Well, thank you, Matt, and once again, thank you, sir, for moderating to the NRCC. We had 2 great events within 4 or 5 days, so thank you, and to National Community College. You have to ask yourself one question only. When you walk into the booth, not been singularly focused. There's a bunch of people up here that have done some great things for a very long time. My background in the Air Force was in the nuclear ICBM world. I think that's pretty pertinent right now, what's going on in North Korea and what's going on in Iran. Nobody up here at this table has that nuclear background, but I do. I bought weapon systems for the DoD. You've heard the president say, we've got to cut back on how much we spend on buying weapon systems. I've done that. I know where those black holes lie. And I did it both from the government side and from industry side. I ran the largest defense corporation, Lockheed Martin's business development office in Boston for 5 years. So I understand what motivates industry. I also understand what it is we need to do to buy weapon systems. My last assignment, I was in Space Command. That's pretty pertinent right now as well. So I understand what it is on the space side, and I work with the Army Space and the Navy Space underneath the unified command of U.S. Space Command. And I'm a small business owner. So I understand when you write your name on both sides of the check, it's a different perspective. Our families had to do without so that we keep the company going. President Trump's a business owner. There's a parlance that you have when you talk about what it is that you need to do to make things go forward. Lastly, Mr. Trump, our president, is not a shrinking violet. Neither am I. I've proven that in the State House. It's easy to go ahead and have a counter vote against a Democratic governor. It's a lot harder when you have to have a counter vote against a Republican governor. You have to have that kind of moral conviction. I've done that. Yes, I've been called into the Speaker's office, and I was a freshman, and he kind of looked at me and goes, you voted the wrong way. And I looked at him and said, well, with all due respect, Mr. Speaker, I don't work for you. I work for the constituents of Nashville Ward 5. So when you go into that booth, you ask yourself, who's the person that we want to send to Washington to take on Ann Custer? And quite frankly, I look for the opportunity to debate Ann Custer on many topics, on world issues, on immigration, national security. I welcome the opportunity to dialogue with her. So I want to say thank you all for coming out. It's always nice to be in my backyard here in the town of Nashville. This is my home. God bless you all, and God bless Nashville, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. A round of applause, please. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out. A big thank you to National Community College for being our host site, and also a personal thanks to the Nashville Public.
Croc TV.